Hi, I'm Terry Esper, Associate Professor of Supply Chain Management at the University of Arkansas.
I'm Randy Bradley, Assistant Professor of Information Systems and Supply Chain Management at the University of Tennessee.
I think today was phenomenal. I think what's really interesting to me about what took place over these last 4 hours or so is that we've talked about how emerging mindsets and emerging platforms that are coming from areas in operations and marketing can actually be applied to how to effectively manage diversity and inclusion within corporations. And I think that's really phenomenal because it suggests that we're talking about some leading edge, cutting edge opportunities to particularly leverage how we manage data and information within companies and make better informed decisions about diversity and inclusion. So I think it was a great discussion.
I agree with what Terry said. The other thing is that we walk away with helping these leaders understand how they, as thought leaders in the D&I space, can also be thought leaders with respect to their organizations and helping moving them more towards a culture of analytics and figuring out how to actually leverage analytics to improve human capital management and diversity and inclusion. I think one of the three things that they need to take away is to focus on the data that's actually in motion and not so much on the data that's actually stored away in the back end, data warehousing and data marts and things of that nature. Because the reality is the true value is with what people are, what's currently happening in your space, not so much just what has already happened. I think another key point to move forward with is being willing to develop not only a culture of analytics in your organization, but being willing to develop the talent, the analytical talent you need within your internal business unit, and then using that as a maneuvering mechanism to help create that capability for the organization as a whole.
If I could add to that, I would probably add that this idea of really knowing that it really all boils down to a question, and instead of focusing so much on the what, start to think more about the why in order to more effectively ask questions and pose questions that are more predictive in nature versus those that are very descriptive. And I think, to me, that was perhaps one of the more compelling takeaways, is that we might need to start thinking about the questions that we're asking of our organization and the questions that we're bringing forward as relates to managing diversity and inclusion. Instead of thinking so much about what in terms of where we are today and what's the current status, thinking about why the current status is the way it is, and perhaps that can lead to insights about how we predict future actions and future strategies. Last thing I would say is really understanding that when it comes to the concept of big data and data analytics, that it's really a mindset, that it's a cultural issue, and it's not so much about technology, and it doesn't basically require a certain amount of data before we can start leveraging data analytics, but really truly it's a mindset and it's a framing issue, and I think that is probably the most important takeaway.
I think the reality is they both exist, right? Big data to one organization is small data to another organization. And so the focus is not to get so caught up in the size or the volume or the variety of the data, but really to focus on the questions at hand and the analytics, because the analytical techniques for using big data as well as small data is going to be the same. The only difference there is as it pertains to the infrastructure that you'll need to have in place to support the analysis of the data. But the techniques are sound, the techniques are true, the techniques are proven.
Yeah, I would say, just to add on to that, I think it's an interesting and provocative question. Because essentially what I hear is, have we entered into a space of big data so much so that small data doesn't exist anymore? And I think a lot of the stuff that we talked about today and a lot of the analytics dialogue that we've been having, essentially the idea there has been to take big data and make it small data by leveraging a lot of data volume-wise and variety-wise, and use that data to try to help us pinpoint more precise decision-making. So in a way, I think the two are kind of the same. And we use analytics to make the difference, right? We use the analytics to take big data, make it small data, so that we can make a decision more effectively.
One of the things we also left off today is that if we take the big data and put two words in between them, one, is it big impact, and is it big insights with respect to the data you have, regardless of the size?